Hey guys, Christina Marie here, and I am so sorry about missing Monday. I got called into work and then I got home so late and I was just so tired that I hadn't had a chance to read the second story. So, I'm finished. I've read both stories. Let's talk about them. I'm going to try and make this video a little quicker other than me talking right now. So let's jump into it. So the first story is Angels in the Snow by Matt De La Peña. Loved it. I loved this story. Oh my gosh. I called it from the very beginning that our main character, whose name I can't remember. Oh my gosh, what's her name? Shy. That's his name. Shy. I knew that he was kind of starving himself. Like, I just felt like, of course, he kept making excuses every time, that he had a fridge full of food and his friend had went, shopping ahead of time and there was just food and blah, 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 blah. But before we get into that, I just really love this story. I love diversity in stories, and this is one of the longer stories in the book too. It's like, it starts on page 51 and doesn't end until page 80 something, 83. So this was a lengthy story, but I really enjoyed it. Then Shy is introduced to this girl Haley, and right away I knew that there was going to be something between those two, of course, but I didn't know to what extent. And I really like what Matt did with this story, where he brought the focus to Shy and his situation, his mental status, and his mentality, and why, how his mental state flowed over into his life. And the poor thing hadn't cried since his mother's funeral, and when his dad slapped him at the funeral, oh, that broke my heart. How hurt and how sad he was, and how he just vowed not to cry again. How he always kind of felt like the odd one out in his family, where he was really smart. I mean, he got a scholarship to NYU, but he didn't know how to use his hands much, which obviously was apparent when Haley called him up or down to her apartment to look at the pipes that were frozen. And he was just like, yup, they're frozen. Yup, this, it was funny. But I just felt my heart went out to him in this story, when he just finally broke down when Haley kind of caught him in a lie. Because she was when she came over to take a shower. Well, when she came over to take a shower, and then she noticed that there was nothing in his refrigerator, and she just kind of called him out on it. I also find it really interesting that Haley asked him a question about himself every time she came downstairs or came to his door to take a shower. She was like, okay, we need to make this a little bit more personal because you're a stranger, I'm a stranger, I'm coming into your house, or this house that you're house sitting, cat sitting, whatever for. So we need to make it a little less awkward. I just thought this story was so well written. And like I said, when everything came to a head after he admitted to her that he wasn't eating and that he was starving, and then she invited him to her house and he ate all of that food. And then, of course, they got drunk and they ended up making out. And Haley had a boyfriend, which we knew at the beginning of the story. And we come to find by the end of the story that Haley was using him as an excuse to not fix her own issues, while Shy was using her as an excuse to not heal properly and to not really, admit that he's in pain. But when he finally cried, like I said, when he admitted all of that to Haley, and then even after she kicked him out of her apartment after they made out and stuff, you could just feel the anguish coming off of the pages. And I just love this story. I love how it ended. It was a little ambiguous, where I'm trying to find it in the book here. And through my laughter, I imagined the boy in the apartment above us sitting near the radio with his little sis and his mom and his dad. I wished I could tell him to remember every single thing about today. Not just whatever presents he got, but his family too, his mom. Because one day, he'd be far away from home, sitting on a snow-covered stoop with a girl he might like, laughing, and he'd want to picture how they all used to be. I just like how that ended. It wasn't like a happily ever after, but it wasn't like a sad story. It was just more of an anticipation, a hopeful kind of tone to the ending. And so I really, really enjoyed this story a lot. Let's move on to Jenny Han's story, Polaris is Where You'll Find Me. Did I say that the Matt De La Pena story is called Angels in the Snow? But anyway, Polaris is Where You'll Find Me. This was cute. This was so cute. Elves. Elves, elves, elves. And then an adopted girl. She was adopted by Santa Claus. What is that about? That is the cutest premise. Did we establish if our main character was Asian? I feel like she's Asian. Yes, she is. Her name is... Oh my gosh, why am I bad at names? Natalie. So she doesn't quite feel like she belongs. When she kind of doesn't almost, because she's a human and they're elves and Santa adopted her. She's just trying to find her way, really. Let me just tell you, Eleanor and Flynn, like I didn't like Eleanor at all. Like I felt like she was just so rude almost. But I really enjoyed Natalie's relationship with Flynn up to a certain point. And then when Natalie goes on the Christmas runs with Santa and she meets Lars, and Lars of course doesn't believe that she's Santa's daughter / helper and Santa Claus is real until he actually sees them. And then Lars gives Natalie her first kiss. That's a story that she takes back with her, you know, to the North Pole or Polaris or whatever. And they think that because Eleanor is such the odd one out, the elves, because she's such an odd one out and because she doesn't fit, she doesn't belong, whatevs, that she makes up stories and tells them to really, I guess, be more interesting or whatnot. And so people tend to, or the elves tend to not believe her, which is what Eleanor represents, I guess. And then I noticed though that when she was talking about Lars and they tried to look him up in the database and they couldn't find him, this was towards the end, he wasn't in the database. I knew Flynn had something to do with it. Like I knew he did. But at the same time, does that mean that since he wasn't in the database that Flynn deleted him from the database and just gave Natalie Lars's address at the end? Like, I don't know. Flynn for me was kind of like a bit of too little too late towards the end of the story. I'm like, Natalie was there the whole time and you've been wasting your time with Eleanor, and now that Eleanor has a focus, and now that Natalie has a focus on somebody else like Lars, you want to step in and be jealous or be resentful or what? One of the things that I love that Natalie did when she was talking to Flynn, because Flynn was getting a little bit assholey towards the end of the story, when she confronted him about why he always went everywhere with Eleanor, why he always went to dances with Eleanor, so on and so forth. He got a little testy, especially when she started talking about, I guess he was building something and she was kind of critiquing it and giving him advice, and he just kind of got a little stick up his ass. And she told him, and I'm going to read it because I'm just so proud of her in this. She said, "My father says that my contributions to the cowgirl outfits were inspired. He said that it was the single most requested outfit for girls ages 5 to 7. So don't you dare try to minimize what I do." I just love how she took a stand for herself. I mean, and that particular passage wasn't anything like over the top special, but it was just so her telling him, hey, I belong here. Even though I'm adopted, I am just as loved as you are. I am Santa's daughter. He told me that I matter and what I do matters. I just thought that was so big of her and a perfect, you know, even though in a short story there's not much character development, I just think this was a really good moment for her. Then towards the end, Flynn comes up to her and just says that he's worried, and the reason why he never really paid much attention to her is because he thought that she would get over it and just stop believing and want to go back to just the regular human existence or whatever. And she said that wasn't the case. And he really, I think, was trying to admit that he had these feelings for her that he didn't want to have because of what she was and what she represented. She was human, and she would stop believing, as humans typically do. And so right at the end, when she asked him, were you about to kiss me? And he says no, he can't. And then he tells her that she's not the one he's worried about in terms of getting hurt. He was talking about himself. And I was like, oh. So even in like this little cute fantasy Christmas story, there's so many human feelings here that I was just able to relate with. And I just thought this was an awesome story. Then after he gave her a kiss, he gave her a piece of paper with Lars's address on it, and that's how the story ends. I liked this story a lot. So far, the Kelly Link story is the weakest link, no pun intended, but it is in the 4 stories that I've read so far. So I'm interested to know what you guys think in these 2 stories, in the Jenny Han story and the Matt De La Pena story. Comment down below, let's discuss. We didn't get too many comments on the last video, which is fine, but this is all leading up to the giveaway for this read along. So I hope you guys are enjoying these videos, and give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in my next one sometime this week. I won't tell you when because I've learned my lesson with that, but I'll see you this week. Later.